not going to be reading a story, an imaginative story. We're going to be reading a real book about real information that really existed. How many of you have ever seen a railroad like this before? Right?
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes we call what do we call this part of the railroad? The tracks. That's right. And these two little sort of things right here is where
they put the wheels
on. The train goes along on the tracks like that.
Yeah, don't go on it.
One of the things about nonfiction that makes understanding nonfiction a little bit more difficult is that there's a lot of words in this book that are used to explain about the topic, and in doing so, sometimes authors have to provide definitions to the reader, even though they might not know what it means. So in nonfiction, I'm going to go ahead and give you each the book right now. And in this book right here, I want you to open up to the first page, past the title page, and I want you to look on page 1. And I want you to find the word on page 1 that is bold. And bold means it's bigger and blacker than the other words. Can you find the word on page 1 that's bigger and blacker? Yes, it is the word engineering. And then if you go to page number 3, I want you to find the bold word on page 3. Obstacle. What about the bold word on page 4? Immigrants. Now, when you start reading this book, we're going to read it a little bit slower than the fiction books because there's a lot of information to digest or sort of process on each page. And when you come to a word that's bold and you don't know what it means in the sentence, there's a place in the book that you can look to find the meaning. And that place is called the glossary. What's it called? The glossary. And the glossary is going to be at the back of the book on the glossary page where it says glossary. Can you find the glossary page?
Oh yeah, right here.
The glossary page.
Oh, there it says engineering.
Yes, and all the words are in alphabetical order. So engineering is the first word, and the word is on the left, and then the definition is on the right. And it tells you right inside the book. This is like a glossary is like a gift from the author. It's like really just telling you what the word means so that you can understand the story better. So what does the author say that engineering means? What's the definition?
The
Math, skills, and knowledge to solve real world problems. That's right. And in the book we read this morning, Tony Sarg, he was kind of acting like an engineer, wasn't he? He was solving the problems of like the air and the weight and the distance of the puppets, and correct. He was acting like that. So to solve a real world problem, which was trying to get those floats to float up by controlling them from underneath and to be high enough.
There's passenger.
Yes, the passenger is one of the words in this book. That's right. We also found the word obstacle on page 3. So what's the definition of obstacle?
A thing that gets in the way of moving forward and blocks progress.
That's right. And an immigrant is who?
A person who comes from one country
to live permanently in another country. So as we read this, as you are reading this book, or as we are reading this book today, I want you to use the text features of nonfiction to the fullest, right? So since the definitions are there, there's going to be a lot of times that you read nonfiction and the definition is not there. It's not there. And you have to use context clues, and you have to use syllable clues and prefix clues, and you have to try to think, well, photo means light, so maybe this means something, like you have to like use information there to sort of make good guesses. But in a glossary, you don't have to guess what words mean. You can look them up right away. And knowing the synonym or the definition of the word is going to help us understand the page better. So, and then, so what we're going to do is we're going to begin by reading this book. This book is going to teach us all about the railroad, how sort of it was created or invented. We're going to read one page at a time, and then what we're going to be working on, what I wrote down for us for our objectives for reading this book, is we're going to learn how to decode nonfiction words, but we're also going to be deciding what did I learn on this page. So every time you read a page today, every time you read one page, you're going to ask yourself, what did I learn on this page? Say that. What did I learn on this page? Because every page is going to teach you something new. There is information on every single page. And our job is to pay attention to the information that it's teaching us so that we know what the information is and we can talk about it or write about it. Okay? So we're going to read page 1. We're going to just read page 1 together. You ready to do that? Is it okay if we read it together?
Yeah.
Okay. And also pay attention to the photographs because the photographs are also a text feature that's helpful. Okay, ready? Here we go. Like the invention of bridges
That were
built to solve an engineering problem, so was the invention of the railroad. Okay, stop right there. Because we read that sentence and it said like the invention of bridges that were built to solve an engineering problem, so was the invention of the railroad. So the invention of the railroad was invented why? Because it just says so. So why were railroads invented? The answer is right on the page in the sentence. That's right. Railroads were invented to solve an engineering problem. That's what it says. So we want to get our answers straight from the book. We don't want to make them up. We want to use information and evidence that the author teaches us. But the author says the first sentence in a funny way, kind of. He says that bridges were created to solve a problem, but then he says, so was the invention of the railroad. So we're already going to be thinking, okay, so this book's going to teach us how railroads, like what was the problem? Like I'm thinking as I'm reading this, I'm thinking, okay, so what was the problem? Like why did they need to create railroads? Like what was the problem that existed that they were trying to solve? That's what readers do. They ask questions as they read and they think, okay, then what is the problem? What was the problem? It didn't tell us the problem with bridges, but I bet it's going to tell us the problem with the railroads. Okay, let's read the next sentence, which is the last sentence of the page, starting with in the early 19th century. Ready?
In the early 19th century, the U.S.
Coast by rail was a key event in shaping modern history. Okay, so what was happening in the 19th century? What was a key event in the 19th century? No. What was a key event in the 19th century? Okay. What about U.S. cities? What was the key event? What were they trying to do?
Modern history.
What were they trying to do? What was the key event that was shaping modern history in the 19th century? Trying to what?
Connect the railing.
Connect.
Oh, connect the railing to there from here.
Okay. Connect using railroads to connect what though?
The
The
U.S.
cities. That's
So they're
right.
building more tracks to connect to the U.S. city.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Yes. Oh, yeah. So,
cute.
yeah, right? That's exactly.
Yeah.
Coast to coast.
Yes.
Yeah,
coast
it's
to
making a lot
coast.
more sense.
Good. Great. So you got cities all along the way. No way to connect them but through the railroad. Right? Okay, good. All right. So now we're going to learn a little bit about what they did before the railroads. How they stayed connected before railroads without them. Okay, ready? Page 2. Prior. Stop. What does prior mean? Prior means before.
Oh,
Okay?
that's a short word.
Uh-huh. Prior means before. Okay, here we go. So if you read the first part, prior to trains and railroads, what's another way you could say that? Before trains and railroads. Okay, so now you're anticipating that you're going to learn what they did before railroads. Okay, before trains and railroads. Okay, keep going. Early what? Settlers. Early settlers. Do you know what settlers are? Settlers, people that moved around, right? Settlers. They were settling a city or a new town. Early settlers would travel to start new homesteads. Homestead. What's a homestead? A homestead is like a farm. kind of like a farm. A farm has a home on it, maybe a barn, maybe a field for the cows and the horses.
Oh yeah,
And it
that's
was-
mine.
And yeah, as in the old days, they called it a homestead. What do they call it?
Homestead.
Mm-hmm. And they would do what? Keep reading. They would
They
walk. They would.
They would walk very long
or ride in covered wagons with horses. They also had bicycles and stage coaches.
So don't turn the page yet. Look at the picture on page 2 and tell me which sentence on page 2 matches
These little
this.
wagons.
Which? Look at the picture, and then tell me which sentence down here matches the picture.
And covered wagons with horses. They traveled in
This one?
What does it say?
Steamboat.
Does this look like steamboats?
So,
No.
this.
Which sentence down here is really showing this picture?
ride.
Oh, this one.
What does it say?
Ride in covered wagons with horses.
That's right. And the horses are probably somewhere in the background. But
Yeah.
these are the covered wagons. And look at the wheels. They're made out of wood. And then you can also, I think also what matches is like the rocky roads and the very long distances. You can just see mountain ranges. And while they're sort of parked in this open area, if you were riding in a covered wagon over a rocky road, I want you to act like you're sitting in a covered wagon right now with your chair, okay? And I want you to act like you're going over a rocky road. What would your body be doing? Yeah, you would be like, oh my goodness. Like, it would not be comfortable at all, would it? No, not at all. Does this picture show anything about steamboats or stagecoaches? No. So that part you have to imagine in your mind. You have to visualize, okay, they're going across the ocean in a boat. Or a stagecoach is basically like a covered wagon, but it's more solid. Right? It's maybe like Cinderella's little coach that she got in to go to the ball, like that. Okay. So
Those are not wagon boats, like
not so much. But okay, so that's how they traveled before trains and railroads, right? It's do you think that was an easy travel or a hard travel?
Hard.
Very hard
Takes
travel. Takes days and days and days to travel that way. All right, page 3. I bet you we're going to learn a few more reasons why the rail system came. Okay, page 3. Ready? Go. Besides the extreme natural elements, one of the biggest travel challenges at the time was the natural obstacle of the Rocky Mountains. Okay, so stop right there because the word natural has a suffix at the end that's AL. So if we remove AL, we're left with the base word, which is the word nature. Very good. Nature. So things like nature, things like mountains and oceans and cliffs and trees and forests and caves, like all those things that nature makes, some of those things are making it hard, right? Being part of the problem. And I think that's what they're saying here. And that's what an obstacle is. Let's look in the back in our glossary and read what an obstacle is. What is an obstacle again? Alex, read us what an obstacle is.
obstacle. A thing that gets in the way of moving forward and blocks progress.
Okay, good. So what's the thing that's getting in the way on page 3? What's the biggest thing getting in the way of the travel? The mountains. Yeah, the mountains. So good. So let's read the last sentence where it starts with a rail system. A rail system. Ready? Ooh. You tired?
Yeah, I'm tired
Goodness.
too. I couldn't sleep last night.
Okay, let's
I
start with
woke
the
up
rail
late.
system. Ready? A rail system through these mountains would speed up moving people and supplies.
So, like, the mountain is moving?
No, the mountain is not moving. The mountain, putting a rail system through the mountains would speed up moving who?
People. And supplies.
Moving people and supplies. So moving people and supplies on trains would be would be a faster way to get people from city to city. And they're going to have to think about a way to make a rail system through the mountains.
That's gonna be hard.
How do you build a rail system through the mountains?
You have to cut them out
You have-
somehow.
Somehow you have to cut through the mountains somehow. I bet this book's going to tell us how they did that. Yeah, but see, readers do that. Readers think about, that's interesting. I wonder how they're going to do that. I wonder if this book is going to teach me that. So let's read on page 4 about sort of how the system started. Ready? More than 2.5 million Chinese citizens were laborers for the Central Irish immigrants were hired too. The work was hard. The days were long. They would blow up mountains and chisel through millions miles of solid granite by hand.
What?
It told us how they did it. And how they built
Did
the
they use some bombs? Did they use some bombs? Is that what it said? Blow up?
You know what? They didn't tell us what they did, but that's a really good inference. They probably used dynamite.
Yeah, that's a lot more faster.
Yeah, dynamite. They probably used some dynamite, which is like
Yeah.
bomb sort
Yeah,
of
they need to stand
equipment.
back.
That must have been hard.
They need to stand back.
That's
They
what
did.
that's what my grandpa used to do.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Make sure not by his house. The cover would blow
Okay.
up.
And I love when we read this page, Alex, she looked at me and she went like this. Like we just are learning what we thought, like how are they gonna go cut through the mountains, right? And it just told us. And they did two things to cut through the mountains. They would blow up mountainsides, right? Or we did probably with dynamite, and then they would chisel. Now, a chisel is like a little bit like a hammer with a point on the end. Not a round head, but like a point. And so they would have they would say this is the chisel right here, and then they would probably have like a hammer too, and they would go, and this would be on the rock, like on the mountain, and they would be like trying to like chisel away.
and break it apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, is it like a little stick?
Yes.
And like you
Yeah.
hit it?
It's like a little stick, and you like pound the stick, and then over here it's got like a sharp thing on the end. Imagine how long that would take.
A long time.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Like
2 years.
so long,
Just
right?
get the birthday puppy.
Because they were chiseling through solid granite, which is a very hard rock. Very hard rock. Okay. Yeah, and it says by hand, which means they didn't have machines to chisel through. You're right. They didn't have a jackhammer. They had to do this all day long by
I bet
hand.
their hands
And
hurt.
I bet their hands hurt as well.
Well,
I bet they were tired. And how many workers did it take to do it?
More than 2.5
million.
million
Yeah.
Chinese citizens.
Yeah.
well
more than
that's
two.
probably a lot of help.
That is a lot of help, and that's just shows us, right, the magnitude of this project.
Because I think they have to like have people like go like do it around.
Like so many people. All right, let's go to page 5, because page 5 is going to teach us a little bit more about how they really did go cut through the mountain.
Yeah,
You can see the cave that they made there.
yeah, this is what they did, right?
This is what they did. They did that. Like Cain's grandfather was doing that. Cain. He said his grandfather.
What?
Oh, it's Cain.
Cain.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Really?
Cain's grandfather was out here doing this, making these caves through the mountains.
Yeah, he's like I think he's like 85 or something, because he's been doing it for like a long time.
Building railroads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then he got
That's really
tired and he like
Retired.
yeah, he was like really
Retired
tired.
when?
Retired because he was tired.
He was like taking like a long break.
Yeah.
because-
Wait, when did he stop? What? How
Okay,
old
we're
was he?
gonna wait, hold on. We're gonna read page 5 and stop. Okay. Let's read page 5, because this page, and be careful on page 5, because page 5 uses a lot of commas, and commas are what authors use when they want to tell us like a list of things. So this page is gonna tell us what else they did. Ready? They cleared the land, leveled terrain, and built embankments, bridges, and tunnels. So they did 3 things, and one of them was leveling the terrain. So terrain, since terrain is a bold word, let's look it up. Okay, and then Frank, why don't you read us what terrain is?
The bottom one, all the way at the bottom.
The physical
Mm-hmm.
features of an area of land.
So terrain is the physical features of the land, which means like the trees and the rivers and the creeks and the rocks and the hills and the cliffs, right? And all of the, all the things that make the land hard to work with. So they cleared the land, which means they just leveled. Leveled is like this, like they just went through and chopped down all the trees and and then they built embankments, which an embankment is like a cliff, kind of like a cliff, like it goes up like this. And then they built bridges, which you can see on page 4. You can see the bridge behind the workers right here. You can see the bridge that they built, and then here you can see the tunnel that they built right here.
So that's like connecting.
Yeah, because they had to go cut through the mountain to make the tracks. And then let's read the last sentence about the goal. Then the goal. Let's read the last sentence on page 5, and we're gonna stop on page 5 and then we're gonna read the rest of the book tomorrow. All right, ready? Then the goal was
To follow a plan to build the tracks system, including
the rails, railroad ties, or sleepers they're called, and the ballast to ensure stability and safety. And we're going to stop, but on page 6 they're going to teach you about how the different parts of the railroad and how they made it safe. So go ahead and close your